Hi guys, congratulations on booking your strategy session. I'm Jim Alamartinez, the founder and director of A-Game Property Advisory, and I'm really looking forward to meeting you and having our strategy session together. Now, the objective of this video is to discuss the 4 steps in building a profitable and sustainable property portfolio. As we know, property is an exceptional vehicle to build wealth over the long term. Now, the first thing that we need to discuss is your objective. In our A-Game strategic property plan, we'll develop a very clear objective, and it's important to have that as we move forward. That first property that anyone ever buys really lays the foundation to their whole portfolio. Now, I'm sure you've heard the stories of people buying an apartment and held it for 10 years, and they go to sell that apartment to buy the home, and the apartment's worth exactly what it was worth 10 years ago. That's what we don't want to achieve. Laying that right foundation is critical to building a sustainable long-term property portfolio. 70% of investors only have one investment property, and that decreases over the amount of properties that you have. And only 0.8% have over 6 investment properties. Now, which one do you want to be? So we need to start with the end in mind, which we develop through our A-Game strategic plan. And for most people, that's just generating a passive income, whether it be 50,000, 100,000, 150,000. And how we do that is by having a net asset base. That's properties that aren't in debt. So for example, if we had $1 million worth of property with no debt and it was generating 5% return, you'd be generating 50,000 of passive income per year. So secondly, and critically, we need to talk about strategy. And normally when it comes to property, there's 3 typical types of property strategies that we use. Number 1 is a positive or neutrally geared property, which is where the property is either taking care of itself, which means it's paying itself off, or generating a bit of extra income for you. Number 2 is negatively geared property, where you normally have to contribute to that property. And number 3, my all-time favorite, and the one that I use a lot for my clients and myself, is the best of both worlds, which is what I call a hybrid strategy. So that's one that is at least neutrally geared, so paying itself off while still achieving that capital growth that we want. Now, in order to determine what the right strategy for you is, we need to really understand what your risk appetite's like and where you are in your stage of life. Now, that risk appetite will help us determine the time frame to get to your end goal that we'll develop in our strategic plan. So many people have a big goal of achieving a 6-figure passive income, but they don't have the risk appetite. So what we do here at A-Game is we reverse engineer where we need to be and customize that objective to suit that person's goal. We know exactly where we are right now, we know where we need to get to the end game, and we plan what property purchase needs to happen as the next step to get us there in the long term. Some examples could be a buy and hold asset, an asset to generate equity through renovation, or generate equity through property development. So the third step in building a sustainable and profitable portfolio is probably one of the most important, and that is cash flow. So generating cash flow through either your business or your job is paramount in order to be able to continue to build year on year until you achieve that end game goal. So having just positive cash flow assets is not the only thing you need to build that sustainable property portfolio. Banks out there always add buffer interest rates to the current interest rate, and that's just to ensure themselves that you can sustain that debt as interest rate rises. So people always get to a point in their journey where they've got either 1, 2, or 3 properties where they potentially can't buy anymore due to serviceability. And you need to look at some strategies as to how you can either increase your income or decrease your debt. So if you can't increase your income through your job or your business, there's a few other methods that you can increase your income to decrease your debt so that it can be serviceable to take on that next property loan. And one of those could be building equity in an existing property in your portfolio via renovation, property development, buying an older home or a property that you've got that is older, knocking down and potentially building 1 or 2 townhouses. And that could really help move on to the next portfolio and fund it. Managing cash flow, whilst it's number 3, it's one of the most critical elements in building a sustainable and long-term profitable property portfolio. So the 4th and the final step is very important, and that's one that really takes time and patience. It's all about knowing what that end property objective goal is and taking small and measured steps along the way to get there. You just can't sit back and wait. you need to be constantly reviewing your property portfolio, making sure that you're increasing your income or decreasing your debt through different strategies. But the end game is what we've set in step number 1. Our A-game strategic plan is that end game, and it's operating every single day with that end game in mind. And so ultimately, if your goal is achieving $150,000 in passive income, we need to buy the right amount of properties and decrease your debt so that you can generate that amount of income. So that summarizes this video in terms of how to build a profitable and sustainable property portfolio. And the key things really are starting with that overall strategic plan, knowing what the end game is, which we create through our A-game strategic property plan, and taking measured steps along the way. So knowing exactly what property you need to buy and why to achieve that goal, and not just taking a punt along the way and thinking it will work out. And finally, you just need to be in it for the long term, because overall, I can guarantee that if you are in it for the long term, I'm a prime example of how you can build wealth through property if you take those measured steps over a period of time.